Memphis is a city fueled by hope. When times get tough, our people are always there to lend a hand to their fellow Memphian to help pull them back up on their feet. ABC 24 embraces all community efforts to keep Memphis standing tall. MAPC is a strong voice with a solid platform in the recovery community, providing aid through education, advocacy, health awareness, and networking with counseling and recovery services. We are proud to call them fellow Memphians. We are proud supporters of their mission, vision, and purpose. And we are honored to be a partner and sponsor of MAPC for 2022.
I'm Yvonne Thomas with ABC 24 Memphis, and we are proud to be a sponsor and partner in this community. Not because we're a news station, but because we're an active part of our community. Let's look at who we are.
What is news? Stories, weather, traffic, gossip, what's trending? It can be all that. But it's also what is news to you. What impacts you locally is why you tune in, or not. What you're about to see is who we are, our purpose, our passion, and our process. How we listen to you and those in our community to give you what you want most. You'll see the people behind the scenes that you email and ask for help. The ones that will find a solution to what is going on in the Memphis community. You'll see how we find those solutions and sort through facts. The art of telling real Memphis stories that are current, but also respecting and understanding the history of who we are as Memphians.
At ABC 24 and CW 30, people matter. We tell people stories.
It's a different approach to news. It's giving a crap. We care.
We listen, we act, and we're going to do right by the people of Memphis.
We use our platform to make this community, our community, a better place.
You see more than just what's on TV and social media. You can see us in the community.
We volunteer. We turn words into action. We celebrate our victories. And when our city struggles, we work to find solutions.
We engage with our viewers and community because that's what we're called to do. We ask questions, sometimes tough ones. We hold the powerful accountable. We hold each other accountable. We live our brand values. We prove we are what we say we are.
It's not a tagline or a slogan. It's how we interact with our viewers that leaves a lasting impression.
It's all about doing the right things. What we do matters. Every day, all day.
It's a big job, but check it out. We're up to it because you, our community, deserve our best. Welcome to the new ABC 24. Welcome to our home, Memphis.
We want our home to be your home, and that's why we're focused on being solution seekers, fact finders, real and current storytellers. We are Memphis lovers, and because of our commitment to these things, we are the fastest growing news source in Memphis, sharing a home with you daily.
Shelby County Opioid Summit. Let me hear you make some noise. That's what I'm talking about. Let's get some energy going in here today. We want to thank our host, Josh Weil. Fun fact about Josh is in his former life, he was a bass player for Roxy Blue. They still tour and play a little bit. If you meet me in the lobby later, I'll show you some MTV videos where Josh has got like long hair, like down past his back. It's awesome. He looks like he's from like Poison or Def Leppard or something. It's really cool. But my name is Jack White. I am the director of the Memphis Area Prevention Coalition. But more importantly, I am a grateful member of the Shelby County Opioid Conference Committee. And there's some people we really want to thank that made this possible. Dr. Hershey and Dr. Brasfeld from the University of Memphis. Thank you for your unselfish kindness. You're always at the table with us. Thank you so much. Casey and Fletch from Alliance. Fletch is up there at the top. Y'all make some noise for Fletch. Thank you, Fletch. And the MAPC team, thank you so much. And specifically, Sam and Scarlett, they really stepped up the last 2 weeks to pull all this together. It may seem real simple, like how hard could it be to put this together, 6 speakers speaking on the same stage. There's a lot that goes into this. We meet every month for about 6 months to be able to organize this. And what about a free conference with free CEUs? Let me hear you make some noise for that. That is provided primarily, not completely, but primarily by the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. The man that is so generous to help Shelby County is fixing to be your next speaker. So when he comes up, I want you to make noise like you've never made noise before, like Prince and the Beatles just walked on stage. But hey, how many students do we have here? Raise your hand. Oh, that's amazing, because you're the main reason we're here. How many professionals that are already in the business, raise your hand? All right, so now I want y'all to see each other. So the students, one more time, raise your hands. Professionals, raise your hand. Look, I want y'all to collaborate through that. The students, you're the reason we're here. We want to give you content that you're not going to find in a classroom. And we really want to, open your eyes to the opioid crisis, but just to this field in general and what all it has to offer for things that you might be interested in when you graduate. And so get to know some of these professionals, ask them about what they do. Please visit our sponsors. Oh yeah, speaking of which, speaking of free, so a couple things on that. It's absolutely free conference. Like I said, thanks to the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. But there are some donations boxes out there. We highly encourage you, if you got a couple bucks, please donate every single dime. It does not go to provide the next conference for next year. This is primarily put on with other funds, but every single dime you donate goes straight to helping individuals that suffer directly from the opioid crisis. So seriously, like if you've ever seen that guy at the store on the corner that's asking for a couple bucks, and like, man, I really want to give him a couple bucks, but I don't want my money to go to the wrong thing. We're the people that make sure that money go to the right thing and that they get the help they need. So seriously, if you've got a couple bucks, there's donation jars out there on the MAPC table and the registration table. Please do that. And also, speaking of money, okay, so this is not state dollars, Tony. This is not state dollars, but out of my own pocket. Y'all know about the scavenger hunt, right? Who knows about the scavenger hunt? All right, cool. So there's a box on the registration table. When you get all your stamps, just wad that up into a ball, not too tight, but wad it up in a ball, throw it in that box that says scavenger hunt. There's some amazing gift baskets that's got like gift cards and chocolate and candy, but out of my own pocket, the grand prize winner, I brought a $50 bill. So somebody is going to win a $50 bill today as a result of the, that deserves a round of applause. Seriously? Come on. Cyber Monday's coming up. All right, listen, but seriously, thank you so much for being here. To our virtual audience, there's like 150 online watching today. Thank you for being here. None of this would be possible without you. Yeah, come on, one more time. All right. Have a good day. Be blessed. Let's get it.
All right, I'm going to keep that energy going. We had a great first speaker, and now we get to continue it throughout this morning with more great speakers. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Anthony Jackson. Anthony Jackson currently serves as the Director of Prevention in the Division of Substance Abuse Services. In this capacity, he oversees all prevention activities for DSAS, including the prevention portion of the Substance Abuse Prevention Treatment Block Grant and the administration of prevention activities carried out through the State Opioid Response Grant that includes supporting the tobacco, prescription drug, and alcohol prevention activities. He also works to ensure access to naloxone in all the state's high-risk areas and works to mitigate the circumstances related to opioid overdose outbreaks. Help me welcome Anthony Jackson to the stage.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jack, I appreciate you. That's way too much. I don't need half of that, or even a third potentially. No, it's nice to see everyone today. I will say the good doctor, I'm not sure if he's here or not, he took all my slides, so I have nothing to talk about. It's okay. Jack feels confident I'll be able to spin it in a way in which you've not heard it before. But you will hear some of what he talks about, but I hope with a different spin, a different perspective. I'll try not to keep it repetitive. I know my teammate Kate Faulkner will be up here in a minute to talk about a portion of what I'm going to talk about today. So real quick, what are we doing? It's an overview, right? I'm the Director of Prevention Services. So what I want to start off with is my department. I'm not in charge of the department. Commissioner Maria Williams is our department has a mission and vision. I think it's so important to start with the mission and vision because it frames up what we were trying to do and why we're trying to do it. Again, the good doctor did a great job of laying out the issues we have in our state and where we are today. But as we look at the mission and vision, and I'm the director of prevention, right? Spoiler, the word prevention is not up there at all. So my part must not be important. No, it is. Prevention is up there when you see the word resiliency. When we say creating collaborative pathways to resiliency, recovery, and independence for Tennesseans living with mental illness and substance disorders. That resiliency part is the prevention part. What's resiliency? Building up protective factors, working to mitigate risk factors. It's trying to prevent or trying to equip individuals with the tools necessary to be able to enjoy recovery and independence in our state. Same concept for the vision as well. So that's where I see my piece as we think about it from the prevention side all the way to treatment, recovery, and so on. So then let's talk about some trends. Again, the good doctor, I've got something different. So if you look at this map, you'll note this is where more overdoses occur in our state. He highlighted that, hey, the top 4 counties have the majority by a good amount, right? But if you look at it, one thing I want to kind of spell out to you guys is what does overdose look like in our state? 2/3 fentanyl related, okay? He mentioned the potency of fentanyl and how likely it is to cause death with such a small amount. 2/3, it was an 85% increase from 19 to 20. So then also, let's look at that 3,032 drug overdoses. 1,315 involved a stimulant. So it's not just opioids, it's opioids and stimulants. You look, only every death, but relative to the amount, only 331, what is that, maybe 11% or so? Involved heroin. So you'll see where it's a transition and a shift. 13% decrease. That's about the only place we had a measurable decrease that was meaningful. And as we talk about the prescription drug issue, and is it a precursor to illicit opioids, so on and so forth, 595 deaths involved prescription pain relievers relative to that 2014 that involved fentanyl, relative to the 3,032 total overdose deaths we had in 2020. So as we think about drug overdoses, again, it's all about framing. Where does it fall? Drug overdose deaths are part of the 4th leading cause of death in Tennessee. Okay, you'll note accidents and adverse effects, 6,101. We can do a little bit of math here. Those 3,032, that's about half were related to overdoses. And so as we think about what's going on in our state, and we see all of those, as you walk down the list, we can prevent drug overdose. And is it we can prevent drug overdose and then also find a way to support people who are in active addiction. Also find a way to provide support and services those individuals so that they don't become a part of this. So who is it? Okay. This is why mine are better. They've got trends. We go all the way back to 16. But if you look at it, you'll see that massive increase in the COVID year, 2020. Yes, there was a big increase. You'll see here where we got male and female breakdowns. But what we really saw, look at that female numbers, that green one, pretty flat. And then it bumped up a good percentage in the COVID year. So what are we seeing here? As we think about trends, it's increasing for females at a higher rate than it is for males. Now, let's look at race. Again, trend data. You'll see here, in terms of the white versus black population, increase, and then obviously we see a massive increase in 2020. Again, we attribute some of that to COVID-19. But look at the race categories and look at how the black Tennessean number, it didn't double, but it's close relative to where the white number Now, let's back off of the demographics and let's look at that trend data by drug type. You saw that first slide where I said, hey, this is where it is for heroin, it's actually gone down, or this is where it is for this category. As we think about it, which one's the one that went up the most? It's easy to see, this is one of those things where it's like, it's super obvious. Fentanyl, right? In conjunction with opioids, because it is an opioid. And so that tells us, in terms of a strategic point, what do we need to work on and how do we need to approach it, especially from the prevention perspective, which again, I am the director of prevention. How do we prevent exposure to this? But then on the other side, if individuals are exposed to it, how do we prevent death? So I mentioned opioids and I mentioned stimulants are an issue. You'll see here where again, any stimulant amounted to 1,315 total overdoses in 2020. Again, you can see that appreciable increase from the stimulant perspective. Let's just look at these real quick. Just forming real quick on that aqua kind of line. You look at that trend, right? This is opioids. Look at it for stimulants. Yeah, stimulants are not as bad relative to number of deaths as opioids in terms of trend, in terms of the growth rate. They are outpacing opioid. You could just see, you don't need to do any math to see that. You just see, oh, it's shooting up more than the other. We don't need to do any regression or anything like that. So as we see these data, the other thing that we try to do is, okay, this is kind of, I guess we'll call it consequence data. These are outcomes you don't want. What is the prevalence in our state? So what we do is we survey youth, young adults. We do a survey every 2 years, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders across the state. I'll admit every county does not participate, but for those who know data, we get a generalizable sample that then we can apply to regions and the state overall to frame up for us what's going on. So as we look at it, you'll notice that part. As we look at this is participation, here's what we measure in the survey. Okay, these are mainly substance use focused. I will tell you all in the administration that's occurring as we speak, we've added some other behavioral health questions in there. You'll note the most recent survey was done during the COVID times. And so what we've decided to do in this third administration is try to think about how do we maybe capture impacts COVID had on youth and young adults. And one other thing is within this most recent one, we were a little bit more, we added more specific questions around vaping. We added more questions around marijuana to kind of expand out what we see as an emerging trend, which I'll go over in a second, because I know today's focus on opioids, but as we think about youth and their substance use, I feel like this is important as well in the lead up to potentially use of other substances. So as we think about key measures in this survey, let's look at prescription drugs first. We actually saw a decrease in youth, okay? 28% decrease in lifetime use. As you look at almost all these numbers are negative except for vaping, okay? And so that's something to where as we think about, okay, I know there's a fentanyl issue, I know there's a stimulant issue, but I see vaping actually being the one that's increasing. I need to still focus on opioid stimulants, but vaping probably needs to get added to that. Now, as you look at these measures, and you'll see here where I think to date, we're not seeing the individual vaping fentanyl and things like that. I think that's something that people think is on the horizon, so we keep it in our mind's eye to be aware of. But if we look at vaping, lifetime vaping measures, at the highest level, obviously vaping anything. But next to it, nicotine, flavoring, marijuana is actually lower than those other categories. As we move forward and look at past 30-day use, again, prescription drugs, opioids, we saw a decrease in youth from our first survey to our second survey. We see a decrease across everything. What's the only thing that didn't have as much of a decrease as everything else? Again, vaping. Past 30-day vaping measures, similar concept as we move from that lifetime to the past 30 days. So, perceived access to substances, okay? This is where students say, hey, it's hard for me to access. Prescription drugs, actually, it's up there a good amount. It's up there close to where marijuana is in terms of difficulty to access. The because what I would say is we think about the prescription drug issue, the opioid issue, the addiction crisis in our state, access is a key component to that. If you can't access it, guess what? You can't use it, right? So that's where, hey, that's good. We'd obviously like it to be bigger. We'd like it to be more than 30%, like it to be 40, 50, whatever. But at the end of the day, that's a decent percentage relative to everything else. What was the easiest thing to obtain? Vaping. You see a trend. I know this isn't about vaping, but as I show these data, that's a piece of it. So then, okay, done this. Okay. So perception of risk matters. Okay. A lot of what my job involves is working to ensure that individuals are educated on, knowledgeable about whatever the issue is at hand, because fact is I'm not going to be there to make decisions for them, and I shouldn't, right? You want to equip people with the tools. You want to equip people with the knowledge and background to make decisions for themselves. Remember how I mentioned, we want people to have independence. That goes into this as well. But as we look at these data, while it looks like in our state, relative to everything else, we're doing a great job on prescription drugs. 8th, 10th, and 12th graders that took this survey, that was what they were concerned about: the risk, misuse, abuse, so on and so forth. Great. The problem is, as you walk down this list, marijuana is at the lowest. Not necessarily a surprise, but I would say it's an opportunity for us to get information out there. It's an opportunity for us to maybe think about how we approach these things. But again, from the perspective of what the purpose of Summit is we're actually doing a pretty good job with prescription drugs. Always opportunity for improvement. I'm a strong believer in that. But fact of the matter is as we think about the issue in our state, we've got that in a good place, especially relative to all these other measures. So now, communication. Mentioned before, we want to give people the tools, allow them to make decisions. You got to talk to people to give them the tools. Okay. So if we look at it, family communicate about the dangers of prescription drug misuse at least once. Very low. Only a third. So 2/3 have not heard from their family. So again, I told you, I started at the beginning saying, hey, these are the issues in our state. These data kind of help us say, hey, what do we need to work on? We need to work on communication. We need to, instead of worrying about equipping youth, young adults, in addition to that, we need to work on equipping parents with information to have the conversation. And I think I talk about a Talk to Hear You program later on in these slides. And then on the other side of it, while we're not as good of a place with prescription drugs, relative to that, we're in a better place with other drugs. Okay, so how do we get there? Last but not, I think this is last. Last but not least, in terms of the data piece, because I'm gonna talk about program in a second. Yeah, half of students have heard prevention programming messaging, right? Well, my job is all prevention, so it needs to be more than half. So that's where, as I talked about here, it might be something that our providers, I look at Jack, I saw Mary Thomas, she works at Shelby County Schools today. They need to work on that on their end, and we need to help give them those tools. On our end, maybe we need to think about messaging at the state level. Maybe we need to think about these campaigns and these methods to reach youth and young adults. So I mentioned, as I was talking about how we want to use these data, this survey, any county can participate at no cost to them except for the time necessary to participate in the survey. We feel pretty good about this administration. I think we'll end up having 40 or so counties, which it works, it'll be fine. But these data can be used for reporting purposes, it's for me, but then also for writing grants, for eliciting, community response. The best example I have is in one of our counties, we did this survey and they got the data, and they just couldn't believe it. The piece they couldn't believe was the age of first use for respective substances like prescription drugs, so on and so forth. The age of first use was so different than what they perceived, what they thought. But I appreciate them. They did a great job, because what do they do with this information? They realign their curriculum so that they engage youth at a younger age than before, because they had the data in front. So that's again where as we think about today and as we think about kind of your purpose here, the role data can play and how it can kind of help us get out of this opioid crisis, addiction crisis in our state. So I'll skip that. So I've talked about data. I started at the state level, and then I talked about what's going on. So then it kind of goes into well, then what are we doing? What could you participate in? So I'm gonna talk about some of our prevention programs. So what do we do? Evidence-based prevention. It's what we're gonna do all the time. It's gonna be evidence-based. I can appreciate the doctor's response to one of the questions where he said, hey, we don't necessarily do that. Well, it sounds like a good idea in theory. We're following the evidence. We're following an evidence-based methodology as we walk through this. So what's prevention? I think we all know what prevention is. It's how do we prevent people from having negative consequences as a function of use of substances. Now, as I think about my office, I'm probably about half of this, I guess what we call like a protractor or rainbow, I don't know what it is. But as you look at it, the work that we do is focus on promotion, universal services, selective services indicating. Recently, we've moved from just primary prevention, which is engaging before use, right, to incorporate a more fuller continuum of prevention services that includes education, distribution resources to people who are actively using substances. I think the doctor mentioned naloxone. He said Narcan. I'll say naloxone. We also have a program that does education around the use of educational opioid use disorder, stigma reduction, things like that, in combination with distributing naloxone to individuals who are at risk of overdose and have no other means to access it. So what's the right population? I don't know. Anyone can use prevention program. 0 to 110. I guess that's a good number. But what I would say though is as we look at the data and as we look at studies, if you engage youth before they start using, you stay engaged with them, provide them the support, provide them the information, give them an opportunity to ask questions. And if they can get to age 24 before developing this disorder, they're infinitely less likely to develop disorder later in life. And so that's where so much of our work does focus on youth, young adults, because that's kind of where as we think about what's the most effective way we can meet and prevent in our state, that's it. Now, all that being said, I mentioned before, we do a lot of universal work. So it might be focused on youth, young adults, but then it's really for everyone at the same time. I mentioned before in terms of that decision-making, you want to make sure people have the information before they are put in a position where they have to make decisions, because at the end of the day, we can't be in everybody's pocket all the time. It's not possible or reasonable to do that. So what we want to do is increase that perception of risk. And that's where if you educate, get them information, that perception of risk is there so they understand. Because fact is the further and further they get out, as the brain develops or in the process developing, perception of risk will decrease over time if there aren't those additional supports. So as I talked about that primary prevention piece, let's talk about kind of tertiary prevention / harm reduction. I think Kate will go way more in depth on this. We work together, so I think I have like just one slide on harm reduction. Harm reduction, it can be considered a bad word, a bad phrase. People think of it as, oh, you're just letting people use. You're helping them use. No, I don't think of it that way. I would say harm reduction campaigns are an alternative to this abstinence-only mindset. If abstinence only works for people, great. Here's the thing, that's a piece of, that's a percentage of. Some people, well, let me say this. Everybody's pathway to recovery looks different. Okay. Some people, maybe an active addiction. Doesn't mean I don't help them. That doesn't mean I say, hey, you have to do what I'm telling you to do, not necessarily what will work for you. And so that's where, as we think about harm reduction, it can range from a lot of things. I mentioned the active addiction part, but it could range from just courtesy rides from prom. Okay. Let's not have them on the road where, again, think about that consequence piece, that decision piece, a life-changing issue for the world. It could involve a syringe exchange program, which I think MAPC does a great job of in this county, in addition to, I believe, A Better Way. I think there's one other one here, I can't remember. Where again, we're not sitting there saying, hey, go inject, it's cool. No. We're giving them sterile syringes, not we, the individuals are, I have to be clear on that. But they're given sterile syringes. But in addition to that, they're given other resources. They're given other materials. It's an opportunity to engage. And as we think about that pathway to recovery, maybe they're not ready for treatment yet. It doesn't mean they'll never be ready. So these programs I mentioned before could be a bad word. They are controversial. But what I would say is at the state, our job is to help everybody, not just some people. And I feel like harm reduction programs and us being able to do some of that work puts us in a position where we get to help everyone instead of before when we were doing more abstinence only. This is years ago. Or our only primary prevention, none of this tertiary prevention. We weren't helping everyone. We were helping a percentage of, but not everyone. So what do these programs look like? Basically, I have kind of 3 big buckets in my office. Everybody jokes about my buckets, but it's fine. It's individual programs, it's universal programs, and then it's our T and Save a Life program. So I'm going to go over all 3 of these. Sure. So what are our individual programs? It's what we call our Tennessee Prevention Network. I joke and refer to these as my butts and seats program. Okay. These are these evidence-based programs that could be like Too Good for Drugs, Bot for Life Skills, Run the Gamut. These are evidence-based programs that are focused on increasing protective factors, decreasing risk factors. If you do a certain dosage and duration, you can expect a certain outcome, right? And so that's where these are kind of our session-based program. Now, what are the goals? Go back to what I said before. You know what the goals are. Delay onset of use, reduce use of, reduce prevalence of negative consequences, has a primary prevention focus. You can kind of see here where, as I talked about the data and got to this point, that we use that to guide the structure on these programs, what the goals look like, because that is our substantiation for the why around the goals. So what county is served by this? It's hard because it's kind of statewide and that anyone can access it from any county, but I think it was mentioned earlier, transportation is always an issue. So you'll see that the aqua color counties are where the programs are based. And then you'll see the purple kind of color counties where there are facilities or locations that also are part of this program. I think we served about 63 individuals in 45 counties last year. And that was mainly focused on youth, young adults. There were some adults there, but the super majority were youth and young adults. So let's go to the next bucket. Universal. We do this through coalitions. Again, today is a perfect example of what a coalition is supposed to do. MAPC has brought this event. Some people knew what they were coming for. I'm confident. Some people didn't know what they're coming for. Some people may still not know why they're here. I hope they find out over the course of the day. Ha, that got some laughs. Good. I know how to butt jokes, so that's about all y'all do for me. But the purpose, but the goal of the coalition is to bring together people in the community. Now, I know with students, we're kind of transient in that you're going to be here for however long, and maybe you're from here, maybe you're not, but you might not be here later. But the reality is you're here now. And so these coalitions bring together people who have a common thread. What is it? In this instance, County Coalition, y'all live here. This is your community. I love that piece that was News 24 had run at the beginning, where they're talking about how, hey, that's our job, is to be out there, work with people, connecting people with that. Same deal with the coalition, which, you know, I don't always know what all my people do, so I didn't know that. It's cool though, it's really great. So the coalitions that receive funding through my office, their focus is what? Substance use prevention. Okay. So how do they do it? They follow this fancy dancy fan. You look at this, anyone that's seen a public health model, that's all this is, okay? The 5 components here, I'll read them real quick. Assessment, capacity, planning, implementation, and evaluation. In that order, you know, you kind of go, that's how you work through it as you're starting out, as you're thinking about what you're doing. We find that this process is important, A, because our major funder likes it. So if your major funder likes it, you like it, right? But B, it creates a structure and a framework through which our people can operate. And our people can put conscious effort into the why and the how. Now you'll note in the middle, sustainability and cultural competence is kind of just thrown on them. It's not. It's something that has to be considered at every single step of this model. Are we doing something that's culturally competent? Is it something that's being done with cultural humility? Is it something that aligns with what the respective community would prefer or like to be treated? So what are the program goals of coalitions? You wouldn't, well, you maybe could have guessed this based on what I did earlier. But their focus is primary prevention around these 5 substances. It wasn't always like this, but we've gotten more funding in the past couple of years where we've been able to expand the work. So our focus is binge drinking, tobacco use, opioids, marijuana, and stimulants. Again, you saw that data earlier. That's what the data said we should do. Okay. So as we look at it, counties that have a coalition, we have 46, 47 funded coalitions. We added 3 new ones this past year. Wilson, Camden, and Green are new ones. We're excited. I think they started about 20 or so days ago. So we're happy to have them on board. Within all of this, as we have all these counties covered, the way it works out is more or less we kind of cover about 71, 72% of the population in our state. So that's something to where, you know, we'd always like to expand, but then it's capacity and all that type of stuff. But with the partners we have, we try to have them, again, do this in the respective communities because these coalitions are county-based. So as we look at coalitions, let's talk about some of the things that coalitions do. Youth coalitions, as we think about, again, engaging before, engaging earlier on, youth coalitions play an extremely important role in all of this because it allows youth, it allows these things to be peer-led, led by youth. Youth are able to develop some executive leadership skills. Youth are able to be involved in decision-making, goal setting, policy establishment. Coalitions find youth from schools, youth organizations, faith-based organizations, SAG clubs, and really they just work to find youth from wherever to be a part of their group. Now, what do youth coalitions do? I mentioned before kind of policy setting, goal setting, that type of thing, but also they do campaigns. They participate in Kick Butt Stay, which is around you know, preventing cigarette use or stopping cigarette use, and then also Red Ribbon Week. So another piece I mentioned before, access is such a big thing. Coalitions do drug take-back days. The next one coming up is October 29th. So it's just a week away or so. And within this, again, decrease access to prescription drugs. Let's see, we also have Tennessee Teen Institute. This is where we bring youth together in partnership with our friends at JACOA, Christy Towns and Barry Cooper. We don't fund it wholly, so Barry, Christy, I know we don't, but we do give some funding to where youth and young adults are able to participate in, again, more peer-led activities, okay? So you can kind of see these objectives. I won't read these off. But at the end of the day, the whole goal here is what? Give tools, develop tools, help inform individuals on the tools that they can use when individuals or parents aren't around. We also support the Teen Strong Youth Summit. Our friends at Health from the tobacco team, Liz Johnson and her people run this thing. But we're excited that we're able to have some of our people, our program participants attend. And again, get information, work with peers, learn information sessions, and then be able to go back home and work with the peers that weren't able to participate in the program. Okay. Oh, here we go. So I think the video is going to play, so I'm going to skip ahead real quick because I'll play the video. Yeah. I had 60s back. I'm not going to play the video. I think my slides will be available, so you can play the video if you want to. But the Talk to Hear You campaign, this is through SAMHSA. It goes back to earlier when I said, hey, this percentage, a third of youth have been communicated about prescription drugs from their parents. Okay. This is where SAMHSA, and then in conjunction through SAMHSA by us, we try to help parents understand prevalence and risk that their youth have. Because I will tell you, some parents, not my kid, not little Johnny, not little Susie. No. Then also number 2, knowledge, skills, and confidence. Again, that support for, you see here, we move from youth to parents to reach youth. And then this third one, help them take action. in their home. I think a lot of it is parents, they're not just like delinquent, not doing. Like, no, they just may not know, may not feel equipped to. So this is an opportunity to give them tools to operate. So the third bucket, overdose prevention and harm reduction. I think I might be around time, you guys. What's harm reduction? It's a way of preventing disease and promoting health. It's about meeting people where they are. Okay. It's not about having them come to me. No, it's about meeting people where they are. So fact is, as I mentioned before, not everybody's ready, either physically, mentally, emotionally, for seeking treatment, for stopping use. With that recognition, harm reduction strategies are a perfect tool to use in that instance. So one way we do a little bit of harm reduction through my office is we have regional overdose specialists. I believe we fund 2 or 3 at MAPC that work in Shelby County, in addition to some other programs. You'll see here, it is a statewide program. You saw some of my other maps had some gaps. This one does not. It's statewide. Every county has access to this program. And so what do ropes do? 4 key things that kind of build off of each other. Provide training education. Serve as a point of contact for education and naloxone distribution. They respond quickly to overdose spikes or clinic closures. And this 4th one, raise awareness and reduce stigma of the overdose epidemic and provide available resources or help people understand what resources are available. So as I read through all 4 of those, what I'll tell you is that 4th one is really what lets us do those first 3. Okay. As they get out into the community, as they build partnerships, as they work to reduce stigma around opioid use disorder. What do I mean by the reduced stigma around opioid use disorder? Recognize it's not just, this is not my language, this is a phrase. Recognize it's not just the junkie down the street. No, that junkie was, I don't use that word. It's a person, and its fact is the substance use disorder that they may or may not have is not their fault. Okay, and recognize it also in terms of it's a person, it's not necessarily their fault. It could be anyone. It could be the person sitting next to you. It could be the person in the back row. It could be anyone. Substance use just doesn't just have a look. Okay, it's not just poor people, it's not just rich people, it's not just Black people, it's not just white people, it's people. Getting individuals in the community to recognize that, because there is some long, strongly held stigmatic perceptions around opioid use, around substance use. If we're able to kind of get through that, we're able to do those first 3 at a larger and larger scale. Because you're able to build those partnerships, you're able to build those relationships, you're able to meet more people where they are, because maybe they're not as stigmatized anymore and they're okay about you maybe knowing that you need to meet them. So what do ropes do? I mentioned kind of those first 4 as, hey, those are their big goals. As they do their training, they cover these topics. Again, much of what I've talked about, because this is important to where while we're here in this group today, I don't know if we're doing rope training, but it's when you're out in the community, people that just don't know. Well, hey, let's get them some information. I'll tell you what the rope training is available to anyone. Anyone can receive a rope training. If you've not received one, please. I see Josh. I'll sign him up for this. He'll do it in Shelby County. Or if you know anybody that's interested in it, please. Because fact is, information is power. So what has this program done so far since inception? Not inception, that's when we started naloxone distribution. We distributed probably about 345, I guess maybe about 350,000 now, or she moved, she's not very more. But anyways, we've got about 350,000 into naloxone, and we've had probably about 50,000 reported lives saved. You know, when we look at that number, you see my comments, so I remember to talk about that, it's a conservative estimate. It's just what's reported to us. A lot of what I think about when I see these numbers is, you know, it's great that we've had 50,000 reversals reported to us. It also, don't tell anyone I said this, it'd be okay if it was 0, because if someone having to report that they use it to reverse, or hey, I was brought back with your naloxone, if that made someone not want to take the naloxone, I don't think it's worth it. Okay, because a lot of it is reporting is extremely important for my job. It's incredibly important for my job. But fact of the matter is we don't want We want as few barriers to access as possible for individuals who are actively using substances who need help and support that they may or may not feel like they need. Let's see, some other things that we do, frequently resource. My friend, Dr. Brian Wimbiggler is up there. I always just chuckle when I see his picture up there. He does trainings for us. We figure it might be better for not Tony Jackson, state administrator, but Dr. Brian Wimbiggler, associate professor, to talk about fentanyl, stimulants, and cannabinoids. If anyone's interested in anything around those topics, those are bit.ly links. I think Kate set those up. So you can go to that webpage, or if you just Google TDMH SAS fentanyl, it should take you to our web pages. See here, I think that's it. So maybe I did okay on time. Good for me. There's my contact information if anyone's interested in anything that was covered in these slides, anything that was confusing or whatever, and you go back home and say, oh, wow, he said this, what was that about? Please don't hesitate to reach out. So all that being said, I guess I'm supposed to ask for questions. Yeah, if y'all got questions, fine. Yes, ma'am. Sure. I think they do, but see, Kate knows that stuff. I don't, and she's gone. So maybe ask her during her part. I'm sorry. Kate's in charge of that stuff. Perfect. I'm down. See, not good at answers. Yeah. Sure. Regional overdose prevention specialist. Yeah, apologies. I have a tendency of introducing it, and then I introduce it all the way up to the title, and you're like, but wait, you're 4 slides ahead. I don't know what that means anymore. No, thank you for asking. Anything else, you guys? That's a good question. I've sent it to them, or they've uploaded, so they've got it. Perfect. Good. Which one? Oh, sure. It's easy though. It's Anthony.Jackson@tn.gov. I am this one because there's another Anthony.Jackson. He's a trooper, so I get his report sometimes. They don't understand it. It's like Anthony Jackson, something else. So I'm always amused. Okay. Good. I feel like that's it. You guys, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited about what Jack and his team have going on here, and I feel like going on a lot of stuff. I get to over kind of I hear programs and stuff, but I feel like everyone else will be more exciting than me. Thanks, you guys.